Hello, I am back. And for how long? I cannot say. I want to work on more videos, so we'll see. But this video is going to be why I hate artificial difficulty in video games. So, what is artificial difficulty? Artificial difficulty is when a game is hard, not because of lack of skill, but because of ridiculous mechanics. It's when a game purposely throws bullshit at you just to make it hard, not because they want you to learn from the experience and do better next time. Where each successful encounter feels like luck instead of skill. Some examples for artificial difficulty that I've found, at least so far, and just some major ones, are from Oblivion, Dark Souls 2, sorry Dark Souls 2 fans, and Malenia from Elden Ring. Alright, so let's start off with Oblivion. What makes Oblivion bullshit? What makes it feel like it has artificial difficulty? Well, in Oblivion, enemies level with you, and that's not really an issue. I mean, some games, they do it well. When an enemy levels with you, it creates a challenge, which is, you know, a great thing. However, in Oblivion, the enemies become more and more resistant to your damage. It feels like each encounter is just taking so much fucking effort that it just doesn't deserve. It's not fun. It feels like a slog just beating these enemies over the head over and over again. Meanwhile, they will just, you know, knock you out in like fucking 2 hits. It's just kind of ridiculous. It doesn't feel like you're becoming more powerful in the game. It just makes you feel like you're stuck at the very beginning. Nothing feels different. Next is Dark Souls 2. What makes Dark Souls 2 feel like artificial difficulty? What makes it bullshit? Well, there's a reason why Dark Souls 2 is called Dark Souls Too Many Dudes. Because there are too many motherfucking enemies in Dark Souls 2. You will round a corner, bam, there's like 5 fuckers just there. It is so unbearable, and each enemy does so much damage to your health. It is just, it's not fun. You'll just get ganked on, like, in the other Dark Souls games and the other FromSoft games, it's more fair because they, you know, separate the enemies out a little bit more. You're not feeling like you're constantly getting swarmed by enemies and you have to fight off waves of them. What they did do correctly, though, I will say, in Dark Souls 2 is that they have a limit on the amount of enemies. So I think after you kill the same enemy like 10 times, they'll just not spawn again, which kind of shows that they knew that they put too many motherfuckers in the game. I love Dark Souls 2. It's a good game. It's just not the greatest FromSoft game, and I think they really tried to push like this feeling of difficulty without understanding the difficulty of Dark Souls 2. They thought, oh, more enemies equals harder game, when that's not really what made this Dark Souls and FromSoft games difficult in the first place. Finally, on this little tangent of mine, what makes Malenia from Elden Ring artificially difficult? Listen, guys, listen. I love Malenia. I think she's super cool, and I actually did enjoy fighting her, kind of, maybe. But the thing about Malenia is that her moveset, right? It's just ridiculous. You cannot go into fighting Malenia killing her first try. If you did, complete luck, or you watch videos of people fighting her. There is absolutely no way you went through that fight through skill. With Malenia, she has this attack. This is spoilers for Elden Ring, so if you haven't played Elden Ring or you're waiting to play it, please click away now. But when you fight Malenia, she has one attack that is completely unpredictable unless you've played the game before or you've seen videos on it. It's called Waterfowl. And that attack, you have to know the pattern of how she attacks. And even when you do, you are still lucky to get out of that attack. It is without getting hit. The thing is that it is very hard to dodge, even knowing it. I knew how her patterns were, and I was still lucky to get out of the pattern, right? I was still able to figure it out maybe like 50% of the time. Even knowing how it worked, it still was like I was lucky enough to be able to roll out of Waterfowl. I mean, if you fight her enough times, you'll probably be able to figure out, but that's the key, right? enough times of fighting her, you'll be able to figure out this bullshit fucking attack. It is ridiculous. There is no way a person's going to be able to figure that out. And that's part of the issue with artificial difficulty. They just threw in some random attack, not out of you expecting to learn out of the skills you've gathered through Elden Ring, but through just pure luck when fighting Malenia. And with these 3 games, I've kind of shown good examples on what artificial difficulty really is in a video game. For Oblivion, it's just increasing enemies and making them either bullet spongy or just resistant to damage in general, while also dealing bullshit amount of damage. From Dark Souls, it's just adding way too many enemies and just overwhelming you. And then from Malenia and Elden Ring, just creating bullshit movesets that you just cannot predict first time around, or even second time around, or even third time around. It just takes you way too long. And games are just becoming, games who want to be difficult kind of almost use like a combination of this, and just don't really understand what makes a difficult game fun, like in Dark Souls. Or a perfect example, I would say, would be Jedi Fallen Order. That game, when you increase the difficulty, it lowers parry timing. So if you are at a lower difficulty, there is a more window for you to parry attacks, and then the higher difficulty you go, the window starts getting, starts closing up. And I think that's a perfect example of difficulty that is done well in video games. Or in most Souls games, even in Dark Souls 2, when you fight bosses, you are learning, and you can predict boss attacks just from what you've learned against other bosses or maybe other enemies in the game, right? So when you're fighting a boss, realistically, you could have dodged that attack because there's either a wind-up, or you've just learned from other enemies in the game how maybe that boss's attack pattern might work. And that's the problem when it comes to these games, is that there is no predictability, and they just toss difficulty at you without really understanding what makes it fun. And that is why I hate artificial difficulty in video games.